The fog was a liar. At 6:47 a.m. on November the 3rd, 1944, that fog was clinging to the ruins of Metz, France. It was a cold, wet shroud, promising concealment, promising safety. And crouched inside a pulverized bakery, Private First Class Michael Donovan was praying for it to stay. He was 22 years old. He'd been in combat for 6 months, and through a jagged crack in the bakery's wall, he watched the world emerge in shades of gray. Across the street, the German positions were ghosts, slowly taking solid form as the sun began its weak ascent. Donovan was a sniper. His job on paper was simple: find the enemy snipers and kill them before they killed the men of the 5th Infantry Division. The reality was suicide. The problem wasn't the city. Metz was a fortress, yes. Over 200 fortified positions, machine gun nests, and interlocking fields of fire. But the real problem, the lethal problem, was the German marksmen. They were different. They were invisible. They were patient. And they were hunting him. Donovan was not an amateur. He'd graduated at the top of his sniper class at Fort Benning. He was armed with the legendary M1903 Springfield, a rifle accurate to 800 yards, topped with a scope that could bring the enemy's face right to him. But none of it mattered, because the Germans saw him first every single time. Without exception, by early November, the 5th Infantry Division had lost 23 American snipers in the fight for Metz. Think about that number. 23. Not infantrymen, running into a machine gun. 23 snipers, the elite, the best marksmen in their battalions. The hunters had become the hunted. 23 empty bunks. 23 letters home that started with, "We regret to inform you." 23 men, erased, and they were all killed the exact same way. Shot while searching for a target they never even saw. Donovan had tried to solve the puzzle. He'd interviewed the spotters, the medics, the men who survived. The pattern was always the same: a single, perfect shot. From an angle no one was watching. The Germans had perfected a doctrine called the Doppelstellung, the double position. It was lethally simple. A German sniper team would prepare 2 concealed positions, 30, 50, sometimes 100 yards apart. They would fire a single shot from position A. The moment that rifle cracked, the American sniper team would dive for cover, and then do exactly what they were trained to do: scan the area of the muzzle flash, triangulate the shot, find the enemy. It took time. 12 seconds, 15, maybe 20. Time to settle the scope, breathe, search the rubble, find the glint of steel. But it was a trap, because the German sniper was already gone. He'd fired and immediately moved, crawling through a trench, a tunnel, or a sewer to position B. And from position B. He wasn't hiding. He was waiting. He was aiming, right at the spot where the American snipers had to be. By the time Donovan or his partners had their scopes trained on position A, the German was already pulling the trigger from position B. The math was simple. It was brutal. And it was perfect. The Americans were searching. The Germans were aiming. The Germans shot first. Always. Donovan's first partner had been Corporal James Bradley. October 18, 1944. Bradley was a farm kid from Nebraska, the kind of quiet, steady hand who, as the stories went, could hit a running rabbit at 200 yards. In 3 weeks, he'd already racked up 9 confirmed kills. He was good. He was fast. That morning, they were set up in a collapsed textile mill. Bradley was on the scope, scanning a factory building 400 yards distant. Donovan was spotting, watching the flanks. There was no sound, no warning, just the snap of a bullet breaking the sound barrier, followed a half-second later by the thwack of impact and the distant crack of the rifle. A 7.92 millimeter Mauser round. It hit Bradley high on the head. He was dead before his body hit the floor. He'd been scanning the front when the shot came from a side window 400 yards away. Donovan never saw the muzzle flash. He never saw the German. He fired 3 rounds at the window. Suppression fire, pure instinct. But he knew. The man who had been eating rations with him 10 minutes earlier was gone. The enemy sniper had spotted them, aimed, fired, and likely vanished before Donovan even knew they were being hunted. Bradley died instantly. Donovan had to carry his body back at dusk. Command sent a replacement. The line had to be held. The mission continued. His second partner was Private First Class Robert Chen. October 29th, just 11 days after Bradley. Chen was different. Not a farm boy, he was from San Francisco. Sharp eyes, steady hands, a bit of city swagger. 12 confirmed kills. He was an artist with the Springfield. They'd been working together for 8 days. 8 days of whispered conversations. 8 days of sharing stale bread. 8 days of watching each other's backs. They were in a new sector. Rubble near a trench line. Chen was on the scope. Donovan was spotting. The same sequence. The snap. The thwack. But this one was different. Chen wasn't killed instantly. The round hit him in the chest. It punched through his lung. He looked at Donovan, confused. He tried to speak, and then he started to gasp. A horrible, wet sound. Donovan scrambled to him, ripping open Chen's field dressing. He pushed the bandage against the wound, but the blood was bubbling from it. Chen was drowning in his own blood, on a dusty floor in France. Donovan screamed for a medic. He kept pressing. He told Chen to hold on. He told him he'd be okay. Chen's eyes were open. He was conscious, and he was terrified. He lived for 40 minutes. 40 minutes. Donovan held him, pressing on the wound, screaming for help that was pinned down by machine gun fire, watching his partner, his friend, suffocate. The German sniper had been concealed in a pile of rubble 350 yards away. After Chen died, after the medics finally arrived and pronounced him dead, after Donovan was left alone again, he found the German's position. It was a perfect hide, a small hole in a mountain of bricks. The German was long gone. He'd probably been watching them for an hour. The pattern was unbreakable. American sniper sets up. American sniper searches. German sniper, already watching, fires first. American sniper dies. Command kept issuing the same useless orders. Stay mobile. Change positions frequently. Use concealment. They didn't understand. They couldn't see the problem. Donovan saw it. He saw it in the back of his eyelids every time he tried to sleep. Bradley, falling like a marionette with cut strings. Chen, his eyes wide, gasping. He spent the next 3 nights, not sleeping, but thinking. He'd sit in the dark, his rifle cold in his hands, and stare at the scope. The scope was the problem. When you looked through an 8x magnification scope, your entire world shrank. It shrank to a tiny 8-degree cone. It was like looking at the war through a toilet paper tube. You could see a single window frame 400 yards away with perfect clarity. But you couldn't see the other window 50 feet to its left. You couldn't see the rooftop above you. You couldn't see the pile of rubble behind you. Everything outside that narrow cone was invisible. And the Germans knew it. They didn't attack the cone. They attacked the man holding it. They exploited this blindness. Ruthlessly. They didn't shoot from the positions the Americans were watching. They shot from the flanks. They shot from angles the Americans weren't scanning. By the time an American sniper, frustrated, turned his scope to search a new sector, a German sniper was already aimed at his head, waiting for the movement. How do you defeat an enemy who sees you when you can't see him? How do you watch your front and your back at the same time? How do you see the threats you aren't looking for? Donovan was now alone. He was a sniper without a spotter. Command told him to wait. that a new partner was being transferred. Donovan knew he was just being assigned a new man to watch die. He was number 24 on the list. He just didn't know the date. On the third night after Chen's death, Donovan was cleaning his kit. Not his rifle, that was already immaculate. His personal kit. He pulled out his standard-issue shaving bag. He opened it. A bar of soap, a worn-out razor, and a simple 4x6-inch mirror. Standard military issue. Metal frame. He picked it up, stared at his own reflection. Exhausted. 22 years old. Looking 40. He looked from the mirror to his rifle, laying on his cot. From the rifle, back to the mirror. And then, an idea, an insane idea. A desperate, hopeless, brilliant idea. What if he could use the mirror to see behind him while he was still looking forward? It was insane. It was completely, utterly against every regulation in the book. Modifying precision sniper equipment without approval from ordnance? Altering your issued gear? That's how you got court-martialed. But Bradley was dead. Chen was dead. 23 American snipers were dead. Donovan didn't want to be number 24. He worked alone on the night of November 2nd. His unit was holed up in what had once been a hotel. Now, it was just a skeleton of shattered walls, collapsed ceilings, and broken glass. The air was thick with the smell of smoke, cordite, and damp plaster. He found a quiet corner on the third floor, a room where the roof was mostly intact. He lit a single dim flashlight. The November night was cold. He could see his own breath fogging in the beam. From his pack, he pulled the mirror. 4x6 metal frame. Scratched, but reflective. He also pulled out a roll of electrical tape, salvaged from a signal corps wire spool. A knife, wire cutters. These were not precision tools. They were the tools of a desperate man. He set his M1903 Springfield on a makeshift table of broken furniture. The AT&X scope sat 3 inches above the barrel, held by steel rings. The mirror had to be mounted where he could see it, while his eye was pressed to the scope. But it couldn't interfere with the rifle's operation. It couldn't block his sight picture. He tested positions. Too high, and he had to lift his eye from the scope. A fatal mistake. Too low, and it blocked his view of the rifle's bolt. Too far forward, and the angle was useless. After 20 minutes of silent trial and error, his hands numb from the cold, he found it. The perfect position. Mounted on the left side of the scope, angled at 45 degrees, positioned about 8 inches forward of his eye. From there, when he looked through the scope, he could see the mirror in his left eye's peripheral vision. A tiny, flickering image. A glance, just a fractional shift of his eye, not his head. And he could see his flank. He could see behind him. His hands were shaking as he began the installation. Not from the cold, from the sheer, terrible gravity of what he was doing. This violated everything he'd been taught. Unauthorized modifications to precision equipment. Altering military property. The minimum punishment was reassignment to a rifle platoon. A death sentence. The maximum was a dishonorable discharge. But Chen's face kept appearing in the dim light. Chen gasping for air, blood bubbling from his chest, dying, slowly. While Donovan watched, Chen had been looking forward. The German shot him from the side. If Chen had been able to see that flanking angle, he might still be alive. Donovan cut the electrical tape into strips. He wrapped them around the mirror frame to create a cushion, then wrapped more tape around the thickest part of the scope tube. The tape was for padding, for grip. The mirror had to stay in place during the rifle's brutal recoil. It couldn't shift. It couldn't rattle. The installation took 40 agonizing minutes. His frozen fingers kept slipping on the tape's adhesive. The mirror kept sliding out of alignment. Twice, it fell off completely, clattering against the broken floor. Each time it fell, his heart pounded in his chest. If anyone heard him, if an officer came to investigate, he'd be in irons before morning. Finally, it held. He shouldered the rifle, pressed his eye to the scope, aimed at a dark stain on the far wall. Glanced left. The mirror showed him the doorway, the hallway behind him, his entire rear arc. It worked. He ran the tape around the mirror frame 3 more times, securing it tight, making it solid. He tested the rifle's balance. The mirror added maybe 4 ounces. Negligible. He checked the scope's alignment. Still perfect. The modification looked crude. It looked like something a child would make. Obviously not factory equipment. Any officer who inspected the rifle would see it instantly. But Donovan didn't plan on letting any officers inspect his rifle. He cleaned up the tape scraps, put away his tools. It was 04:45. In 5 hours, he'd be moving to a new position in the destroyed industrial district. German snipers owned that sector. 3 American snipers had died there. Just in the past week. Tomorrow, Donovan would find out if a simple shaving mirror could change the math of death. That morning, he met his new partner, Private Sam Martinez, 19 years old, from Texas. He'd been a sniper for 3 weeks. 0 kills. Good instincts. Scared. As they moved out in the pre-dawn gray, Martinez saw the contraption on Donovan's rifle. He pointed. "What is that?" Donovan looked at him. "Survival." Martinez didn't ask any more questions. At 06:47, they were in position. The same destroyed bakery Donovan had been in days earlier. The south wall was gone, exposing them to the street. But the bakery's old brick oven provided a solid, dark fortress within the ruin. A crack in the wall gave them a narrow view of the German-held factory complex. 400 yards away, perfect sniper terrain. Martinez covered the room's entrance, his M1 Garand at the ready, watching for German infantry. Donovan settled behind his Springfield. The morning fog was lifting. The factory emerged from the gray. Broken windows, collapsed roofs, piles of rubble. Somewhere in that wreckage. They were waiting. Donovan pressed his eye to the scope. The 8x magnification brought the factory into sharp, terrible focus. He began his scan, left to right, slow, methodical, looking for a shadow that was too dark, looking for movement, looking for the tiny circular glint of an enemy scope. His field of view was narrow, a 50-foot cone 400 yards away. That's what killed Bradley and Chen. They'd been looking through this same narrow tube, blind to the world. But now, Donovan had the mirror. In his left eye's peripheral vision, it was there. A small, scratched, distorted reflection. It showed the street behind him, the ruined buildings across the way, his flanks. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. At 07:23, he saw it. Movement. Factory, 3rd floor, damaged window. A shadow. Could be debris. Could be the wind. He held his aim steady. Breathed. The movement came again. Human. Definitely human. A German soldier, moving slow, careful. A sniper, setting up. Donovan calculated the distance. 410 yards, no wind. An easy shot. His finger tightened on the trigger. He was about to end it, and then he saw it, in the mirror. A flicker. A tiny, almost imperceptible shift of light. Behind him. Across the street. A building he'd thought was empty. 3rd floor window. Donovan did not move. He did not turn his head. He kept his eye glued to the scope, his rifle aimed at the factory. But his attention, his entire world, snapped to the mirror. He watched the reflection. And there, he saw it. The glint of a scope. The dark line of a rifle barrel. A German sniper. The German was aiming directly at him, at the crack in the wall. He'd probably been watching them for minutes. He was probably, right now, taking his last breath before pulling the trigger. This was it. This was the exact moment. The moment Bradley died. The moment Chen died, focused on a target to the front, while a flanking sniper prepared the kill shot. But Donovan saw him. The mirror. Worked. He kept his rifle locked on the factory and whispered, his voice barely a breath. Martinez. German sniper. Building behind us. Third floor, left window. He's aiming at us right now. Martinez, to his credit, didn't flinch. He just moved. Slow. Smooth. He brought his M1 Garand up, aimed toward the building behind them. Found the window, Martinez whispered. I see him. Donovan said, on my count. I take the one in the factory. You take the one behind us. 3, 2, 1. Fire. The Springfield cracked. The recoil slammed into Donovan's shoulder. 410 yards. The German in the factory window jerked backward, hit center mass. He fell out of view. The instant Donovan fired, Martinez fired. The Garand's .30-06 round punched through the window frame behind them. The German sniper, the one who had been seconds from killing them, slumped forward, his rifle falling from the window. 2 shots. 2 kills. 5 seconds. Donovan worked the Springfield's bolt, ejected the hot, spent casing, loaded a new round, scanned through the scope again. The mirror showed no more threats. They were clear. Martinez was breathing hard, the adrenaline pumping. He stared at Donovan. The German was about to shoot you. He had you dead. How did you see him? Donovan just tapped the crude, tape-covered mirror on his scope. Martinez stared at it for a long, long moment. You need to put that on every sniper rifle in this battalion. The engagement that morning lasted 4 hours. Donovan's team eliminated 6 German snipers. Donovan got 4. Martinez got 2. And the mirror saved their lives 3 more times. 3 times, Donovan spotted a target through his scope, only to see a second threat, a flanking threat, appear in the mirror. Each time, the coordination worked flawlessly. Martinez engaged the flanking threat. Donovan took the forward target. The German double position tactic was useless. Their unbeatable system was broken. It was broken by a 10-cent piece of glass and some tape. By afternoon, word had spread. Donovan's team had 6 kills and 0 casualties. Other teams wanted to know how. Martinez told them about the mirror. By evening, 3 more snipers from the platoon wanted the modification. The first was Sergeant Frank Wilson, 28 years old, from Montana, a hunter. He had lost 2 partners in 3 weeks, both killed by flanking shots they never saw coming. Wilson watched Donovan install the mirror on his rifle that night, in the same dark, ruined hotel room. He asked questions about the angle, the position. When Donovan finished, Wilson tested it, looked through the scope, glanced at the mirror. He looked at Donovan and said, "It's perfect. I should have thought of it." The next morning, Wilson's team engaged German snipers near the cathedral. Wilson spotted 2 using the mirror. He eliminated them both before they could fire. He came back that night, raving. The modification, he said, had saved his life. He told every sniper he knew. By November 8th, Donovan had installed mirrors on 9 rifles. The modification spread, sniper to sniper, team to team. They stopped waiting for Donovan. Snipers started making their own mirrors, using whatever they could find. Broken glass, polished belt buckles, even pieces of chrome ripped from destroyed vehicles. The battalion's kill ratio, shatter, began to shift. In October, American snipers in Metz lost 2 men for every 1 German eliminated. A 1-to-2 ratio, a losing game. By mid-November, the ratio was 4-to-1. In American favor, 4 German snipers killed. For every American lost, the hunters were back. But now, Donovan had a new problem. The modification was no longer a secret. It was popular. And on November 10th, the man in charge came to find out why. Captain Robert Hayes commanded the battalion sniper platoon. He was career Army. 12 years in service. He knew every sniper manual by heart. He was a man who went by the book. He was doing a standard inspection, checking equipment, verifying rifle zeros. He climbed the stairs to Donovan's position in a bombed-out church tower. He saw Donovan. He saw Martinez. And he saw the mirror, taped to Donovan's Springfield. Hayes just stopped. He stared at it. For a long, silent 10 seconds, he pointed. "What? Is that private?" Donovan's stomach dropped. This was it. The court-martial. Everything he had feared. Before Donovan could even think of an answer, Martinez spoke up. "It's a mirror, sir. A modification." Martinez explained everything. He talked about Bradley. He talked about Chen. He talked about the German flanking tactics. He explained how the mirror let them see those threats. He told Hayes it had saved their lives. Multiple times. He finished with, "It's completely unauthorized, sir. But it works." Hayes looked at Martinez. Then he looked at Donovan. He walked over. He didn't yell. He just looked at the rifle. He examined the crude tape. He tested the angle of the mirror. He bent down, put his eye to Donovan's scope. He glanced at the mirror. He stood up. He understood. Instantly, he looked at Donovan. His voice was quiet. "How many rifles have this modification?" Donovan's throat was dry. "9, sir, including mine." Hayes was silent for another long moment. Donovan prepared to be arrested. Then, Hayes said something Donovan never expected. "By tomorrow morning, I want every sniper rifle in this battalion to have one." "That's an order, Private." He looked at Donovan. "I'll handle the paperwork. You just focus on keeping my men alive." Donovan stood there, stunned. Hayes, a man who lived by the book, had just ordered him to rewrite it. He had just made an unauthorized, court-martial-worthy field modification. Official battalion policy, Hayes understood. He understood that regulations were ink on paper, but his men were blood and bone. He was willing to risk his career to save his snipers. That night, Donovan didn't sleep. He didn't just work, he led. He recruited Wilson, Martinez, and the other snipers who had the modification. He showed them how to install the mirrors, the exact angle, the best positioning, the right way to tape it so the recoil wouldn't shatter it. They worked all night in the basements and ruined buildings of Metz, a small, secret factory of desperate men. Some mirrors were mounted with tape. Others used salvaged telephone wire. One sniper, a farm boy from Iowa, used leather straps he cut from a German gas mask case. The methods varied. The principle was the same. Give the hunter 360-degree vision. By the morning of November 12th, every sniper in the battalion had a mirror on his rifle, and the German snipers walked into a buzzsaw. Their world changed overnight. Their unbeatable Doppelstellung tactic, Sandverreken, now got them killed. They would set up their two positions. They'd fire from position A, expecting the Americans to foolishly scan that spot. But the American sniper wasn't scanning position A. He was already watching position B in his mirror. Again and again, German snipers, moving to their second position, would be met by a single 30 or 6 round. From an American sniper, they thought they were outsmarting. Intelligence reports, captured later, showed the confusion. German commanders in Metz wrote about the unusual and aggressive new American sniper tactics. They reported that Americans were engaging flanking positions they shouldn't have been able to see, that they were counterattacking before the German snipers could even fire their second shot. The Germans tried to adapt. They moved further back, trying to engage from 600, 800 yards. It didn't matter. The mirror showed movement, regardless of distance. They tried attacking with multiple snipers at once, hoping to overwhelm the Americans. It didn't work. The American teams working in pairs were now invulnerable. One man on the scope watching forward. One man, Martinez, watching the mirror. Nothing got past them. By late November, the unthinkable happened. The German snipers, the terror of Metz, stopped engaging. They started avoiding the American sniper teams. The tactical advantage hadn't just shifted, it had been conquered. The modification, of course, never became officially sanctioned by the Army during the war. Not really. A training inspector noticed the crude mirrors in December 1944. He wrote a scathing report. Unauthorized modifications. Violation of ordnance protocol. Lack of standardization. The report circulated for weeks. Officers in the rear debated how to handle it. On one hand, it was a complete breach of regulations. On the other, the sniper teams using these mirrors had survival rates and kill ratios that were unprecedented. In January 1945, an official evaluation team from Aberdeen Proving Ground came to Metz. 3 officers, 2 civilian ballistics experts. They inspected the mirrors. They tested them. They interviewed the snipers. They measured the field of view improvement. They calculated the tactical advantage. Their conclusion: the mirrors were a significant survivability enhancement. They needed to be integrated into sniper doctrine immediately. The team went back to the States and wrote a formal recommendation. They suggested that all sniper rifles be fitted with peripheral mirrors. They even designed standardized mounting brackets. They made it sound like they had discovered the innovation. Private First Class Michael Donovan's name never appeared in the documentation. Neither did Martinez's. Neither did Hayes's. The official record would show that Army evaluators had identified a problem and developed a solution. Captain Hayes was furious. He tried to correct the record. He wrote letters. He submitted after-action reports, making sure Donovan's name was in every single document from his battalion. But those reports got lost, filed away, buried in the massive bureaucracy of a global war. The evaluation team's version became the official one. Donovan learned about this in February 1945. An officer showed him the paperwork, asked if he wanted to file a complaint. Donovan read it. He saw his idea, his desperate middle-of-the-night gamble. Credited to a committee, he just handed the paper back and said no. He didn't care about the credit. He cared that snipers were surviving, that partners weren't dying from shots they never saw coming. The war in Europe ended on May 8, 1945. Donovan had survived 11 months of combat, 47 confirmed kills. The mirror had saved his life. At least 6 more times, Martinez survived. 14 kills. After the war, he went back to Texas, became a police officer. For 30 years, he kept a photograph of Donovan's rifle. On his desk, Wilson survived. 31 kills. The mirror saved him 4 times. He went back to Montana, became a hunting guide. Donovan stayed in the Army until 1946. Then he went home to Pennsylvania. He got a job in a factory, the same work he'd done before the war. He married in 1947. He had 3 children. He lived quietly. He never talked about the war. When people asked, he'd just say, "I was a sniper, that's all." He didn't mention the mirror. He didn't mention saving dozens of snipers. He didn't mention changing the face of sniper warfare in Europe. It wasn't modesty. He just didn't think it mattered anymore. By the 1960s, the mirror modification had been forgotten. New scopes had better optics. The official Army history of sniper operations never mentioned Donovan. His contribution had been erased. Not by malice, just by time, by bureaucracy. Field modifications aren't historically significant. Official developments are, and that is where the story should have ended. But it didn't. In 1987, a military historian researching sniper innovations found references, unusual references. In 1944, maintenance logs from the 5th Division, mentions of improvised mirrors. The logs mentioned a Private First Class Donovan. The historian spent months tracking down veterans from that unit. He found Sam Martinez, and Martinez told him everything about Bradley, about Chen's horrific death, about Donovan installing the mirror in the dark, about how it spread, about how it saved them. The historian found Donovan. He was 67 years old, still in Pennsylvania. The historian asked him, "Did you install these mirrors?" Donovan said, "Yes." The historian asked why he'd never talked about it. Then he told Donovan, based on survival rate improvements, that simple 4x6 mirror had likely saved between 40 and 60 American sniper lives. Donovan was quiet for a long time, and then he said, "I never counted. I just remembered Martinez and Wilson and the others who came back." Michael Donovan died on June 7, 2001. He was 79 years old. His obituary mentioned his service in World War II. It did not mention the mirror. It did not mention that he saved dozens of lives. His funeral was small. Family, a few friends, and 4 old men. His family didn't recognize. After the service, they introduced themselves. They were snipers, men whose lives had been saved by the mirror. They'd read about Donovan's death in veterans' newsletters and had driven hundreds of miles to pay their respects, to make sure his family knew. Today, Donovan's story exists in fragments, in old logs, in transcripts. But if you visit the Infantry Museum at Fort Benning, you can see an M1903 Springfield from World War II, and mounted on the scope is a small rectangular mirror, 4 inches, metal frame held on by crude tape. It's labeled Field Modification, common in late 1944, no name attached. That mirror is Donovan's legacy, not the official one, the real one. That's how innovation actually happens in war. Not in committees, but in the dark, by soldiers who see a problem, who risk everything, because their friends are dying, and they can't stand to watch it anymore. He installed the mirror to save one man. His idea saved dozens, and nobody remembers his name. But now, you do. At 0700 on January 15, 1944, First Lieutenant Frank Taksky walked through the brig at Marine Corps Base Camp Tarawa in Hawaii. He was 29 years old, a combat veteran of Guadalcanal and Tarawa, and he was looking for the worst Marines in the 2nd Marine Division. He found them. 18 men locked in cells for fighting. Assault charges, gross insubordination, destruction of military property. The kind of disciplinary problems that got Marines dishonorably discharged. Taksky was not there to punish them. He was there to recruit them. Why? Why would an officer, a combat veteran, walk into a prison to build an elite military unit? Why would the Marine Corps allow him to recruit men who couldn't even follow basic orders? The answer was not in Hawaii. The answer was 2 years earlier, in a green hell, on an island called Guadalcanal, a place that had forced the United States Marines to break every rule just to survive. The story really begins. At 0900 on September 27, 1942, Lieutenant Colonel William Whaling stood on the churned earth perimeter of Henderson Field, watching the jungle. It wasn't a noble watch. It was a vigil. He was watching 4 Marines, their shoulders straining, carry a stretcher draped in a poncho toward the aid station. The poncho was dark with everything. 22 years old. His 3rd patrol this week, he was dead before his squad even found the Japanese position they were looking for. 3 more stretchers followed. The jungle had swallowed a 7-man reconnaissance patrol that morning. Only 4 came back, and they came back broken. This was the fundamental, terrifying truth of Guadalcanal in 1942. The Japanese owned the jungle, and the jungle was eating the 1st Marine Division alive. 2 months into the campaign, the situation was a catastrophic failure. American Marines, trained for open warfare, for frontal assaults on European fields, were walking into a green hell they could not comprehend. They were walking into ambushes they never saw coming. A 7-man patrol would leave the wire. An hour later, 2 men would crawl back, eyes wide with a terror no training manual had ever prepared them for. The other 5 vanished. 17 patrols had been erased in 3 weeks. Not defeated. Erased. The Japanese soldier, by contrast, moved through the dense, suffocating vegetation like a phantom. They were ghosts. They wore leaves. They tied themselves to treetops. They lived in spider holes for days. They could lie motionless, covered in mud and insects, for 72 hours, waiting for a single Marine boot to step in the wrong place. A Marine patrol couldn't see an enemy soldier standing 10 feet away. It was a complete tactical breakdown. Tadantidant Mitsu, snipers, shadows in the canopy, picked off officers, and radio operators with chilling precision. Machine gun nests stayed completely invisible until an entire squad had walked past. And then they would open fire from behind, cutting the patrol in half, trapping them, annihilating them. This was not war. This was extermination, and Lieutenant Colonel William Whaling knew this pattern would kill them all. The 1st Marine Division had lost 400 men to Japanese ambushes in September alone. Not in glorious battle, not in charges. They were bled out, man by man, patrol by patrol. Standard infantry tactics did not work. Standard Marine doctrine was a death sentence. The Marines needed something different, something the Japanese feared, something invisible. They needed something the Japanese did not expect. The man watching this disaster unfold was, by all accounts, a failure himself. 2 days earlier, Lieutenant Colonel William Wild Bill Whaling had been relieved of his command as executive officer of the 5th Marine Regiment. There was no combat failure, no cowardice, just personality conflicts with his commanding officer. Whaling was a man who spoke the truth. He saw the tactical failure, he named it, and he was punished for it. He was a professional, an expert, in an organization that was rewarding blind adherence to a rulebook that was getting men killed. In any other circumstance, an officer in his position, sidelined, disgraced, would have been shipped back to the United States on the next available transport. A black mark on his record. His war over. But Colonel Gerald Thomas, the divisional chief of staff, knew Whaling. He knew his reputation. This was not just any officer. This was Wild Bill Whaling, a veteran of the First World War, a man who earned a Silver Star at San Miguel. He was an expert marksman, a legend of precision who had competed for the United States in the 1924 Olympics. Think about that. In an era before high-tech scopes, this was a man who understood ballistics, wind, and breathing better than perhaps any man on the entire island. Most importantly, Whaling understood fieldcraft. He understood hunting. He understood the brutal, patient art of stalking an enemy better than any officer in the division. So Colonel Thomas kept him on Guadalcanal. He gave him a simple, desperate order. Think about our jungle problem. Whaling did more than think. He watched. For 3 days, he sat at the edge of the perimeter. He watched patrols leave, confident, loud, heavy with equipment. He counted them. And then he counted how many returned. The mathematics were brutal. At this rate, the 1st Marine Division would run out of infantrymen. Before the Japanese ran out of jungle, he needed men who could do the impossible. He needed men who could hunt the hunters. Men who understood stalking. Men who could read a bent twig, a disturbed patch of mud. Men who could move silently. Men who could kill without ever being seen. On September 29th, Whaling, the disgraced officer, walked into General Alexander Vandergrift's command tent with a proposal that would change the course of the Pacific War. It was not a request. It was a necessity. He said, "General, give me 100 volunteers. Let me organize a specialist scout sniper unit." He wanted men hand-picked from Marines with hunting backgrounds, outdoorsmen, poachers even, men who were already skilled marksmen. He would not train them for frontal assaults. He would train them in reconnaissance, in ambush tactics, in invisibility. He would send them into the black heart of the jungle in small 2- or 3-man teams. Their mission, not to fight the Japanese. Their mission was to dismantle them, gather intelligence, eliminate officers, locate machine gun nests before the regular patrols advanced. Vandergrift, a student of history, approved it immediately. The general had studied Lieutenant Colonel Robert Rogers and his Rangers tactics from the French and Indian War. Small, mobile units, operating independently, deep behind enemy lines. The idea fit perfectly with their desperate situation on Guadalcanal. Whaling had 1 week. 1 week to find his men and start training. The hunt was on. He started reading service records that night. He wasn't looking for Marines with perfect discipline. He was looking for specific markers. Expert rifle qualification. Obviously, rural backgrounds. Men from Appalachia, from Montana, from the swamps of Louisiana. Men who had hunted deer and boar to put food on the table. Hunting experience. Essential. And then, a 4th category. The one that made other officers nervous. Disciplinary records. He looked for records that showed independence, not cowardice. Men who thought for themselves. The kind of Marines who got in trouble for questioning a stupid order, but always completed the mission. Men who weren't afraid to be alone. By October 1st, Whaling had identified 43 candidates. He called them to a briefing at Oru 600 on October 2nd. The air was thick, hot. He told them the assignment was 100% voluntary. He told them the casualty rate for this kind of reconnaissance work ran above 50%. He told them they would operate in teams of 2 or 3, sometimes for days behind Japanese lines. No backup, no extraction if things went wrong. If you were caught, you would die alone. If you were lucky, the Japanese would make it quick. He finished speaking. The silence was heavy. 41 men volunteered immediately. 2 men walked away, and no one blamed them. Whaling looked at the 41 men standing in front of him. Most were 20 years old or younger. Half had been in combat, less than 2 months. But they had something. The regular infantry did not. They wanted to hunt, and William Whaling was about to teach them how to become the most feared unit the Japanese would ever face in the Pacific War. His training would create a template, a lethal blueprint. A blueprint that, 2 years later, another Marine officer would discover. An officer who would take Whaling's methods and add an even more unusual, more shocking requirement to his recruitment process. A requirement that would forge a legend. But first, the prototype had to be built, and it had to be built in blood. Whaling started training on October 3rd. No manuals existed for what he was building. The Marine Corps had officially disbanded its Scout Sniper program after World War I. It was considered ungentlemanly. The Japanese had no such illusions. Everything Whaling knew came from experience. 24 years in the Corps, jungle patrols in Nicaragua, the brutal trench-scarred battlefields of France, where he learned a simple, profound lesson. Invisible soldiers live longer than brave ones. The first lesson was silence. He took his 41 volunteers into the jungle west of Henderson Field. He pointed 100 yards through the dense, dripping vegetation. His order? Walk from here to there. Without making a sound, every single man failed. Miserably. Equipment rattled. Boots cracked branches. Canteens clinked against rifles. The jungle, which seemed so loud with insects and birds, acted as an amplifier for human sound. A Japanese soldier could hear that clink from 300 yards away. He made them do it again. He made them unlearn how to be a soldier. They removed everything that made noise. They taped down metal dog tags. They taped down sling swivels. They wrapped cloth around canteen hooks and bayonet handles. They walked in soft-soled boots, or even barefoot, instead of their standard-issue leather-heeled boots. After 3 days, 3 agonizing days of moving 1 foot per minute, half the men could finally move through the densest vegetation without alerting a Japanese position 200 yards away. They were learning to be ghosts. Marksmanship came next. Most Marines could hit a man-sized target at 300 yards on a sunny, clear rifle range. But rifle ranges did not have 90-degree humidity. Rifle ranges did not have driving, torrential rain. Rifle ranges did not have wind that gusted through trees. And rifle ranges did not have targets that shot back. Whaling taught them to read the jungle. He taught them to estimate distance by the size of a known terrain feature, like a fern. He taught them to judge wind by watching the speed of the vegetation. He taught them to account for how tropical humidity would affect the trajectory of their bullet, pulling it down over long distances. He made them fire from uncomfortable positions, lying in thick mud, uphill, downhill. A shot that almost always went high, crouched behind cover that barely concealed them, their hearts pounding. By October 10th, his best shooters, the men who truly listened, could kill a Japanese soldier at 400 yards with iron sights. It was superhuman, and it was exactly what was needed. But the hard part, the truly hard part, was teaching them to think differently. The Marine Corps was built on the squad. 12 men, a clear chain of command. Orders flowed down from officers. Initiative was discouraged. Whaling needed the exact opposite. He needed teams of 2 or 3, operating independently for days, making life-or-death tactical decisions without asking permission. He needed soldiers who could adapt. When the plan inevitably failed, he trained them in map reading and terrain analysis, not just how to read a map, but how to see the terrain through the enemy's eyes. Where would you put a machine gun? Where is the best ambush position? He taught them how to sketch enemy fortifications from memory, how to estimate troop strength from the color of campfire smoke, or the amount of foot traffic on a trail. These were skills that regular infantry never learned, because officers did that thinking for them. Whaling wasn't just training snipers. He was training 41 new officers. He was creating 41 independent, lethal hunters who could think, move, and kill, all on their own. On October 13th, the training ended. Whaling received new orders from General Vandergrift. The division was planning a major offensive across the Matanakaw River. Japanese forces had dug in on the western side, dug in deep. Machine gun nests covered every possible approach. Artillery positions sat hidden, invisible, in the jungle canopy. Regular patrols kept getting slaughtered trying to find them. Vandergrift's order was simple. He wanted Whaling to take his new, partially trained, unproven unit and locate those Japanese positions before the main offensive started. This was it. The test. Whaling picked his 8 best men, the best hunters, the best thinkers. He split them into 4 two-man teams. He gave each team a specific sector of the riverfront to scout. His orders were precise. Avoid contact, if possible. Gather intelligence. Sketch the positions. Count the guns. Count the men. And return. Then he gave the final order, the one that cemented the reality of their new war. If you get pinned down, you are on your own. There will be no rescue missions. The division cannot afford to lose more men looking for lost scouts. They were expendable, and every man knew it. The first team left at 400 on October 14th. 2 Marines, both from Montana. Both had grown up hunting elk in high mountain forests. They moved west along the Matanakaw River in total darkness. They didn't use flashlights. They moved by feel, by the sound of the water. For 3 hours. They were ghosts at 071 theme. They found it, a Japanese artillery position. 4 Type 92 howitzers, hidden perfectly under camouflage netting. They counted 60 soldiers. They sketched the position. They counted the ammunition crates. And by noon, they had returned, undetected. The second team found a machine gun nest, a Nambu heavy machine gun, overlooking a critical river crossing. They mapped it. The third team mapped the Japanese patrol routes. The fourth team ran into trouble. They were mapping a trail network when a Japanese patrol appeared. 5 soldiers, 50 yards away, walking right at them. The 2 Marines froze. The 2 Marines froze, waited for the patrol to pass. But one Japanese soldier stopped, looked directly at the patch of vegetation where the Marines were hiding, and raised his rifle. The Marine closest to him fired first. A single deafening shot. The Japanese soldier dropped. His 4 companions scattered, shouting, disappearing into the jungle. Within 30 seconds, whistles echoed through the trees. Enemy troops, hundreds of them, converging on the sound. The 2 Marines ran. They ran east, back toward Marine lines, crashing through vegetation they had moved through silently just hours before. The Japanese followed. The chase lasted for 40 agonizing minutes. The Marines reached friendly positions, diving over the parapet, with 11 enemy soldiers just 200 yards behind them. They were exhausted. They were terrified. But they brought back critical intelligence. Whaling now had detailed maps of Japanese positions along a 2-mile front, information that regular patrols had failed to gather in 2 months of trying. Information that had cost dozens of Marine lives. General Vandergrift looked at the maps on October 15th and immediately, decisively, changed his entire offensive plan. Instead of a suicidal frontal assault into the teeth of those machine guns, he would use the scout teams, Whaling's ghosts, to guide flanking maneuvers around the Japanese strongpoints. Whaling's unit had proven the concept worked. It had proven its lethality in just 24 hours. Now, Vandergrift wanted more. He told Whaling to expand. Find another 60 volunteers, form a full company, and prepare for the largest Marine offensive of the Guadalcanal campaign. The battle for the Matanakaw was coming, and Whaling's scout snipers would lead the way into the deadliest jungle fighting the Pacific War had yet seen. The Matanakaw offensive began at 0600. Whaling's scouts moved out 30 minutes before the main assault. Their mission was simple: infiltrate Japanese lines, locate command posts and artillery positions, eliminate officers and radio operators, create chaos before the main Marine infantry even crossed the river. Whaling organized his scouts into a special task force. The unit was officially called the Composite Battalion. Everyone else called it the Whaling Group. They crossed the Matanakaw River 3 miles upstream from the known Japanese positions. They moved through jungles so dense that visibility dropped to 20 feet. No trails, no maps, just compass bearings. And Whaling's training. By 0800, they had penetrated 2 miles behind Japanese lines. Undetected. The first engagement happened at 0920. A Whaling Group scout team spotted a Japanese command post, a tent, radio equipment, 6 officers studying maps, 15 soldiers providing security. The scouts waited. They waited until all 6 officers gathered for their briefing. Then, they opened fire from 200 yards. They killed 4 officers in the first volley. The remaining Japanese soldiers scattered into the jungle, never finding who shot them. 30 minutes later, another scout team eliminated a forward observer, a man who was calling in deadly artillery strikes on the advancing Marine positions. A single shot, from 300 yards. The observer dropped. The Japanese artillery fire stopped. Instantly. Marine infantry advanced 600 yards before the Japanese gunners even realized their spotter was dead. By noon, the whaling group had effectively encircled the Japanese positions west of the Matanakau. Regular Marine battalions attacked from the east, while whaling scouts cut off all routes of retreat. The Japanese forces found themselves trapped between two forces. No escape, no reinforcements. The fighting lasted 4 days. Between October 6th and October 9th, approximately 750 Japanese soldiers died in that encirclement. The Japanese 4th Infantry Regiment effectively ceased to exist as a combat unit. Marine casualties, by contrast, were lighter than in any previous offensive. General Vandergrift credited the scout snipers with changing the entire tactical situation. Small teams, gathering intelligence, eliminating key targets, disrupting command and control. The Japanese had not expected Marines to fight like this. They expected frontal assaults, not infiltration, not ambush, not ghosts. Whaling's methods worked, but they came with a price. On October 8th, Whaling himself took shrapnel from a mortar round. He was evacuated and would spend the next 4 months recovering. But his program, his legacy, survived. The 1st Marine Division formally established scout sniper platoons in each infantry regiment. The training became standardized. The selection criteria formalized. Everything William Whaling had created from scratch, from failure, from desperation, became official Marine Corps doctrine. His legacy was not just a victory. It was a concept, a template for how Marines could fight differently. His program became the foundation for all Marine Scout sniper operations. Through World War II, through Korea, through Vietnam. 2 years later, another Marine officer, preparing for another bloody invasion, read Whaling's after-action reports. He studied his training methods. He studied the success at the Matanakau, and he decided to build something even more aggressive. An elite platoon that would take Whaling's ideas and add one controversial, shocking twist. This officer did not want disciplined Marines. He did not want hunters and outdoorsmen. He wanted fighters. He wanted troublemakers. He wanted men who won brawls and ended up in the brig. He was about to create the most legendary and notorious scout sniper unit of the entire Pacific War. At Oro 700 on January 15, 1944, First Lieutenant Frank Taksky walked through the brig at Marine Corps Base Camp Tarawa in Hawaii. He was 29 years old, a combat veteran of Guadalcanal and Tarawa, and he was looking for the worst Marines in the 2nd Marine Division. He found them, 18 men, locked in cells for fighting. Assault charges, gross insubordination, destruction of military property, the kind of disciplinary problems that got Marines dishonorably discharged. Taksky was not there to punish them. He was there to recruit them. 3 months earlier, Colonel James Risley had given Taksky an unusual, almost insane order: form an elite scout sniper platoon for the 6th Marine Regiment. Model it after the British Commandos. Train 40 men in reconnaissance and long-range killing, but do not recruit from the regular infantry. Risley wanted something different. He wanted men who could not follow orders, men who thought for themselves, men who would survive deep behind enemy lines, where the rulebook tactics that Whaling rewrote still got you killed. Taksky understood the assignment perfectly. He had read William Whaling's reports. He knew that Whaling had recruited disciplined hunters, men who happened to have fieldcraft skills. Taksky wanted the opposite. He wanted fighters. His selection criteria was brutally simple. He told the skeptical officers, when 2 Marines fight, one wins and one loses. The loser goes to the infirmary. The winner goes to the brig for assault. Standard Marine justice is punishing the wrong man. The winner, he argued, proved he could handle himself, proved he would not quit when things got violent. That was the Marine Taksky wanted on his team. The brig commander thought he was insane. He told him these men were troublemakers, criminals, the worst discipline cases in the division. Taxki replied, "That is exactly what I need." Over 3 weeks, Taxki interviewed 47 Marines with disciplinary records. He asked them why they fought, what they did before the Corps, whether they could kill a man silently with a knife. 23 of them volunteered. Another 17 came from regular infantry, Marines with expert marksman ratings who had already proven themselves at Tarawa. By February 1st, Taxki had his 40 men. He called them the Scout Sniper Platoon of the 6th Marine Regiment. The nickname came later after they started stealing everything that wasn't bolted down on the big island of Hawaii. They became the 40 Thieves. Training began in the dense jungle highlands near Hilo. Taxki used Whaling's methods as a foundation: silent movement, long-range marksmanship, map reading. Then he added his own brutal twist. He added British commando tactics, hand-to-hand combat, knife fighting, garrote techniques, how to kill a sentry without ever making a sound. He trained them with piano wire garrotes, teaching them how to roll the wire in glue, and crushed glass. The platoon learned to live off the land, hunt wild boar, catch fish, identify edible plants. These were survival skills for operating for weeks behind enemy lines, where resupply was impossible. Equipment was a problem. The Marine Corps issued them World War I-era Springfield rifles, outdated rations, no proper camouflage, so they stole better gear. They raided Army supply depots at night. They took newer weapons. They stole canned food and cases of whiskey. They even stole an Army captain's Jeep and repainted it marine green. The stealing became legendary. Other Marine units called them the 40 Thieves, not as an insult, but as a mark of respect. These men operated outside all normal military constraints. They took what they needed to survive, and their officers looked the other way because Frank Taxki was building something unprecedented, a unit that could hunt Japanese soldiers in their own territory. By May 1944, the 40 Thieves were ready, and Saipan was coming. 15 square miles of volcanic rock, jagged caves, and dense jungle. 30,000 Japanese defenders, dug in, waiting. This was the first invasion of Japanese home territory. High Command expected 70% casualties in the first week, and the 40 Thieves would go in first. Days before the main landing, their mission was simple: scout enemy positions, map defenses, kill officers, and survive long enough to guide the main assault force through the bloodiest invasion of the Pacific War. At 05:30 on June 15, 1944, Corporal Bill Canopel crouched in a Higgins boat 300 yards off Saipan's western shore. He was a member of the 40 Thieves, and he was watching naval bombardment tear apart the beach ahead. The noise was unbelievable. 16-inch guns from battleships, 5-inch destroyer batteries, rockets from landing craft. The entire shoreline disappeared under smoke and fire. The Japanese were waiting anyway. The 2nd and 4th Marine Divisions hit the beach at 8:40. 8,000 Marines in the first wave. Japanese artillery opened fire immediately. Mortars, machine guns, artillery zeroed in on the landing zones. Marines died before they ever left their boats. Bodies floated in the surf. Wounded men drowned in 3 feet of water. The 40 Thieves landed in the 4th wave. Their mission was different from the regular infantry. While the line companies fought and died for every inch of sand, Taxki's platoon moved inland. They were looking for Japanese command posts, artillery positions, supply dumps, targets that regular Marines would not reach for days. By noon, the Thieves had penetrated half a mile inland. They found themselves in dense sugarcane fields, where visibility dropped to 10 feet. It was perfect terrain for an ambush. Japanese soldiers hid everywhere, in caves, in underground bunkers, in spider holes, covered with vegetation. The first silent kill happened at 1300 hours. Two thieves were scouting a trail when they spotted a Japanese radio operator, alone, setting up an antenna wire. They approached from behind. Piano wire garote. The operator died without making a sound. They took his maps, his radio codes, and left his body hidden in the sugarcane. 2 hours later, another team eliminated a 3-man observation post. Knives. No gunfire. Japanese officers never even knew their forward observers were dead. Their artillery fire became uncoordinated. Marines advanced through the gaps. This was what Takski had trained them for: silent killing, operating independently, making tactical decisions without orders. Regular infantry fought set-piece battles. The thieves hunted. On June 16th, Takski led a patrol to scout Mount Tipo Pale, a volcanic peak in central Saipan. Intelligence reports said the Japanese were using the mountain as an observation post. Someone up there was calling artillery strikes down on Marine positions. Takski needed to find them. The patrol reached the base of the mountain. They found a trail leading up the slope, fresh footprints and bicycle tracks. The Japanese were using bicycles to move supplies and troops down the mountain. Takski positioned his best snipers along the trail, 5 men with Springfield rifles mounted with unertl scopes. He told them to wait. By noon, Japanese soldiers started descending on their bicycles. Officers, couriers, supply runners. They made easy targets. The thieves killed 14 men that afternoon. They never fired more than 1 shot per target. They never gave away their position. The Japanese response was predictable. They sent a patrol of 40 soldiers up the trail to find the snipers. Takski pulled his men back before contact. They melted into the jungle. The Japanese patrol found nothing but empty firing positions and dead bodies. That night, Takski received new orders. Division intelligence had located a massive Japanese ammunition depot near Garapan, Saipan's capital city. Command wanted the thieves to scout the depot, report on its security, and possibly destroy it, if the opportunity presented itself. The mission was suicide. Garapan sat 2 miles behind Japanese lines. Thousands of enemy soldiers were between the Marine positions and the city. No support, no backup. If something went wrong, the thieves would be on their own. Takski picked 8 men, the best fighters in the platoon. He told them they would leave at 0200 on June 17th, move through the darkness, scout the depot, and return before dawn. He did not tell them about the intelligence report he had read just that afternoon, the report that said Japanese commanders had ordered their troops to take no prisoners, that wounded Marines were being used as bait to ambush rescue parties. The thieves were walking into hell. The 8-man patrol left Marine lines at 200. No moon, complete darkness. They moved west through the sugarcane fields toward Garapan. Sergeant Bill Canopel led the way, reading the terrain by feel, stopping whenever he sensed movement ahead. They reached the outskirts of Garapan at 04115. The city had been flattened, but it was still a functioning military base. The ammunition depot sat on the northern edge of town. 3 concrete bunkers surrounded by barbed wire. Guards at each entrance. Takski counted 16 soldiers. His orders were to scout and report, not to engage, but he saw an opportunity. The bunkers had ventilation shafts, narrow openings in the concrete, just large enough for a satchel charge. If they could place explosives without being detected, they could destroy the entire depot, eliminate tons of Japanese ammunition. He made the decision. Corporal Roscoe Mullins and Private Otto Hebel volunteered. They moved toward the bunker at 0430, crawling the last 100 yards. It took them 20 minutes. Japanese guards walked patrol routes just 30 feet away. Mullins waited until a guard turned his back, lifted the satchel charge, wedged it inside the ventilation opening, and set the timer for 15 minutes. They were 10 yards from the bunker. When a guard spotted them, the Japanese soldier shouted, raising his rifle. Mullins fired first. The guard dropped, but his shout had alerted the entire depot. Whistles echoed through the ruins. Soldiers poured out of buildings. The thieves opened fire from 200 yards away, covering Mullins and Hebel as they ran. The satchel charge detonated at Oro 457, 3 minutes early. The explosion tore through the bunker. Secondary explosions followed. Artillery shells, mortar rounds, small arms ammunition. The entire depot chain reacted. Explosions continued for 5 minutes. The sky turned orange. Debris rained down across Garapan. The thieves used the chaos to escape. By 0600, they had crossed back into Marine lines. All 8 men. No casualties. They had destroyed the largest ammunition depot in northern Saipan. Division intelligence estimated the explosion eliminated 30% of Japanese artillery ammunition. But the mission had consequences. Japanese commanders now knew Marine scout units were operating deep behind their lines. They increased patrols. They set ambushes. On June 19th, a thief patrol walked into an ambush near Mount Tipo Pale. The Japanese had used 2 wounded Marines as bait, left them crying for help in an open clearing. When the thief patrol approached, the ambush triggered. The wounded Marines died in the crossfire. That night, the 40 thieves held an unofficial meeting. No officers present. They voted unanimously. No thief would ever be taken alive. If a man was wounded and unable to escape, the other thieves would ensure his quick death, rather than let him be captured and tortured. The war on Saipan had become personal. The next day brought the worst loss the thieves would suffer. Corporal Martin. Dyer led a 5-man patrol to scout Japanese artillery. They found the guns, 4 Type 92s, perfectly hidden. As they began to withdraw, they were ambushed from 3 directions, caught in a perfect kill zone. Dyer ordered his men to scatter, to run. He stayed behind with a Browning automatic rifle, providing covering fire while his team escaped. 3 men made it out. Dyer and 1 other Marine did not. Dyer's body was never recovered. For his actions, he was posthumously awarded the Navy Cross. He had sacrificed himself to ensure his patrol's survival. By June 26th, news arrived that changed the tactical situation. Japanese forces were preparing for a massive, final banzai charge. Intelligence estimated 3,000 soldiers would attack Marine positions in a single suicidal assault. Command wanted the thieves to infiltrate the Japanese assembly areas, locate the officers, and eliminate them before the attack began. It was the most dangerous mission the platoon had received. Tatsuki briefed his men. He told them the odds. He told them casualties would be high. He asked for volunteers. All 20 men stepped forward. They moved out at midnight on June 27th. They split into 5 teams of 4. The first officer died at 02:30. A Japanese captain, studying maps by lamplight. Tatsuki's team approached within 50 yards. A single shot from a suppressed Springfield. The captain dropped onto his maps. His guards never even heard the shot. Over the next 3 hours, the 5 thief teams eliminated 17 Japanese officers, majors, captains, lieutenants, the entire command structure for the banzai charge. By 05:30, all 20 thieves had returned to Marine lines. 0 casualties. The banzai charge came at 0400 on July 7th. 3,000 Japanese soldiers screaming, bayonets fixed. They hit the Marine positions, but the Japanese attack lacked coordination. Officers who should have directed the assault were dead. Units attacked without support. Communication broke down. What should have been an organized, overwhelming offensive became a chaotic, suicidal charge. Marines held their positions. Artillery and machine gun fire cut down wave after wave. By 0800, the Banzai charge had failed. The battle for Saipan was effectively over. The 40 thieves had done their job. The platoon finished the Saipan campaign with 27 men, 13 casualties over 21 days of combat. 4 dead, 9 wounded. They returned to Hawaii in August. The platoon was disbanded in October. The men were distributed to regular infantry units. The Marine Corps had decided that specialized scout sniper platoons were too expensive in casualties, but their legacy lived. Frank Taxkey received the Silver Star. What William Whaling created on Guadalcanal. The 40 thieves perfected on Saipan. Modern Marine Scout snipers trace their lineage directly to these men. Whaling's training methods. Taxkey's selection criteria. The fieldcraft. The silent killing. The independence. The Scout Sniper Military Occupational Specialty was retired in December 2023, after 81 years, but the legacy remains. In reconnaissance platoons, in tactics manuals, and in the stories passed down, stories of Marines who learned that sometimes the deadliest warriors are invisible.